Happy Team List Tuesday for all those that celebrate this time of year, and welcome back to the channel. Team lists for round one, the last 6 games, were officially dropped, and there's a lot to dissect, so let's just get straight into it. Thursday night, Storm and Eels. Moses Leo, popular cheapie, been named at centre with Nick Meaney to move to the wing. Great news for Nick Meaney, for anyone that drafted him in draft, but classic-wise, a very interesting watch. Just shy of 600k, just over around that 600k price range. With the goal kicking now on the wing, potentially scoring more tries, he becomes a really close watch over the first few weeks. And our popular cheapie Moses Leo has ended up in the centres. Whether that's good for his scoring or not, we're not entirely sure yet, but definitely a buy, I think, as a cheapie there. And in the pack, Joe Chan and Lasardi have both been named on the edges. It's being reported that Joe Chan's going to play right and Lasardi play left. Honestly, it's a bit of a flip of a coin there. If you want to avoid both, probably a good idea. At this point, I'm not really warm on either of them anymore. I feel like whoever wins that spot is going to job share anyway with the other, so potentially they're both a trap. But if you want to own one of them, probably Joe Chan on the right, just outside Hughes, but up to you really. And then not much to touch on there. And at the Eels, no Addo-Carr, so Sean Russell actually starts on the wing and Brian Kelly will get a chance in the centres. It looked like Brian Kelly wasn't even going to make the side, but with Addo-Carr out, he now comes in. And Sean Russell was actually one I was somewhat interested in owning after the trials, but probably get a good look at him over the next few weeks to see if he's a potential to have in the future. And then the pack, pretty standard, not much to touch on there. At the Warriors, the only relevant news is Jacob Laban has won the back row spot, starting with Leka Halasima on the bench. Again, not one that I'm overly keen on. At 290k, he's just as likely to drop out of the team next week. Obviously, Mitch Barnett's missing there. He can play a bit of edge. Jackson Ford can play a bit of edge. They've got Lecker as well, who they're going to want to get minutes into, so probably one I'd avoid there too. Interesting that Tane Tupicky has been named in 18. I've heard he's been injured over the preseason, so they're going to ease him back in. But if he was to end up at fullback, he would come straight into CTW consideration. A starting fullback in the CTW is a recipe for success in SuperCoach, really. At the Roosters, breaking news this afternoon, actually. Rob Toyer's going to miss the game, so it'll be interesting to see who will replace him at right centre. Benai has been named at number 9, as we expected. Nat Butcher wins the right edge spot, with Victor Radley still out. And Blake Steep will start at lock, with Siwa Wong and Connor Watson both to come off the bench. Blake Steep, potentially an early season own. I just can't really trust the minutes there. So just wait and watch there. And then Friday night, Broncos and Panthers. At the Broncos, not much to touch on, named as expected, essentially. And at the Panthers, just Paul Alamotti will actually start this year. Will actually get the start. He was overlooked quite a few times last year for Thomas Jenkins, but he's been pushed back to number 18. So Paul Alamotti will get the start there, and Garner just in the starting side for Liam Martin, who's still out with an injury. And then any IPAP owners, Isaiah Papali'i, he's been named on the bench, likely to play through the middle, probably a sell now. And Kalani Going, who was my nuff, has actually been named on the bench, so I've had to move him on because he'll just be an AE nightmare. Saturday afternoon, Sharks and Titans. For the Sharks, pretty much named as program. Tom Hazelton to start, actually. Jesse Colquhoun will get the start at 13. However, red alert, I think, on Jesse Colquhoun. Big red flags. The Sharks bench is Talakai, Rudolph, Kafusi, Ueli, and Peru. All middle forwards. There's 5 there. He obviously can only use 4. But I can't see Colquhoun playing more than 50 minutes with that bench rotation they've got there. So he's actually come out of my side, which is a shame because he's got the duel. I just don't think he's actually going to make that much money. At the Titans, huge news for my team. No Jaden Campbell for, I think it's 2 to 4 weeks at this stage. So he's at the come out. I've had to reshuffle, and I've actually ended up with Cleary at halfback now, which I was going to have to get him anyway, so probably good just to start with him there. Faimani, the young CT dub rookie, will get a start on the wing for the Titans. And big news just for Tino owners, he's now got the dual front row, second row, which I think lifts his stocks quite a lot. Puts him, like, for any Keon owners, Tino's now a potential other option, but with the dual as well, which probably makes him more valuable to your side. So, one to consider there for anyone looking around that price bracket. And another young back rower at the Titans, Arama Howe, has won the starting spot with the word all preseason was Josh Paxton was going to get that starting spot. He hasn't even made the six-man bench, so Howe looks pretty safe for the time being. The late game on Saturday, Manly, Tom Trbojevic named to play, definitely a pod option there. Paseka named to start, very good for any owners there. And then just Joey Walsh has made the bench for Manly. Could he potentially make his way on the side in a few weeks? And then they've got just the three middle bench of Hetherington, Bullimore, Brown. So just Paseka's minutes are probably a watch there because I can't see any of them really playing any edge. So they'll all cycle through that middle rotation. Jake Trbojevic should really only be playing up to 50 minutes a game. So Paseka should get 50 to 55, but just to wait and see. And then at the Raiders, a few big changes. So Tamale's back on the wing. Simi Sasangi is going to play right centre with Matt Timokor to play reserve grade. Ethan Sanders will get his first game of the season without playing any trials. And in the pack, Noel Martin wins the right edge spot, 250k 2RF. Got trap written all over him, definitely an avoid. And the bench, Jaden Brayley, Zach Hosking on the bench, which is interesting that Zach Hosking looks like they're going to play him as a middle. And then Jaden Brayley has got that spot over on Paddy, although Ricky has come out and said he wants Paddy to get some minutes in reserve grade. So it's not really a dropping, but just like a switch up, I guess you could say, from last season. And then the last game of the round, unfortunately, we didn't get Trey Fuller at fullback, and the Hammer will line up at fullback for the Dolphins, with Jake Averillo to remain the centres, Selwyn Cobbo on the left wing. Definitely a pod, definitely one I'm interested in. Gilbert and Flegler to start in the front row. There with Morgan Knowles at number 13. Huge news for Flegler owners. With the Dolphins bench, they've got Schneider, who's a half hooker, Oren Keeley, who's an edge forward, Felice Kafusi obviously plays in the middle, Trey Fuller, outside back, Sebastian Sewer is a prop. So really there's two middles there, unless they opt to move. I don't actually know whether Oren Keeley can play through the middle, whether Kurt Donahue drops back to 13 and Brad Schneider goes to hooker. Just have to wait and see there, but it looks like good minutes for Flegler early on. But it is worth noting that Jacob Saifidi, or one of the Saifidis, whichever one's at the Dolphins, is due back, as well as Max Plath and Francis Molo. So there's three middles to come back in that rotation, so you might get a few good weeks out of Flegler, but it doesn't look, his prospects long term I don't really like. And then the Rabbitohs, as we've thought all off season, Jai Gray at fullback, Johnston and Campbell Graham on the wings, Latrell Mitchell and Jack White in the centres, Cody Walker at 5'8", and Ashton Ward has been promoted to start at halfback there. And then the Rabbitohs pack, a few interesting things here. So you got Totola and Kalamatangi to start in the front row, which to be expected with Jai Arrow out indefinitely with that shoulder injury. Bronson Garlic at 9 with no cheese, and then Dave Fafita and Ewan Aitken will start on the edges with Cam Murray at lock. So Tallis Duncan hasn't made the starting team, which we all thought he would, but he also was probably only getting opportunity last year because of the injuries in the South team. Don't get me wrong, great player, but maybe Wayne will like him off the bench. But the rest of this South pack, so they've got Duncan, Hubner, Kepi, Mamazelos, Jaden Sullivan, and Graham Talfa. So really they've only got, three forwards there. Duncan likely to spend some time on the edge, probably for Dave Fafita. So then you got Hubner and Kepi rolling through the middle. None of them are going to play huge minutes, which is why I've brought Keon into my side this week. I think he'll play 65, 70 minutes through the middle. and just looks like a beast. So one I'm going to start with. I had Tino. I've moved into Keon and freed up a little bit of cash there, and he's probably one I'm going to start with for now, and just assess how that whole position works out.